Now we have a roundtable discussion by the Music Care Company.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for us to be here today. Stephen, who lives in America and work with us for the development of the Music Care application, is going to present you our work. But I just want to make a little introduction and maybe also to answer a few questions at the end of the presentation. But so Music Care was created maybe 10 years ago after make 10 other years of research in the French hospital. We were the first in France to make control randomized study to assess the impact of different musical algorithm for the pain treatment, anxiety, and also drug consumption. So today we work in France with more than 500 hospitals. And today in France, the doctor and the medical staff prescribed music for treat pain and anxiety. So I hope that will interest you, and we're just here to share our experience and the results of our research today. So I let Stephen continue this presentation.
So the presentation we present today is really to give you an overview of what Music Care does. As Stéphane was mentioning, we've been in the research and science of music for over 20 years. What we've essentially done is we've created a composition method that modulates the different parameters of musical compositions. So the presentation today is going to be somewhat scientific. And so please stop me at any point if you have any questions, because we will jump from the scientific concepts of music care to the actual music composition concepts, which I believe Stéphane will be better suited to answer. So as the main problem that music care solves is in the past several years, we've seen a significant increase in the use of medication to treat chronic pain and anxiety, and as well as disorders, sleep disorders. This over-opioid use, as we all know, is a serious health issue, and prescriptions are given very, very easily now in the United States, but across the world as well. So music care is a music-based method that has been medically proven to lower psychiatric drug use by up to 53% while reducing pain by 52% with no side effects. The couple of indications that we attack are mostly related to chronic and acute pain. The anxiety, we deal with anxiety, sleep disorders, drug abuse, and depression. If you can see that we have been connected to many universities over the years. The key university that we have worked with is Université de Paris, Sorbonne, the Ohio State University. We have relationships with McGill University as well as Université de Montréal with the Brahms department. The technology itself is on an application that is downloadable from the iOS stores and the Google Play stores. You can basically go through genres of music and recommended tracks based on your likes. It is very similar to Spotify or to an iTunes. They all have a similar user interface. We kept it as easy as possible. We've actually done some usability studies with key partners in Europe that essentially have done because focus groups with different age groups, with different doctors, with, could be old patients, could be young patients. And we've modulated our application to really keep it as simple as possible for all different demographics. The key element of our protocol is we collect a lot of data on the patient level before and after a session. This is very important because it really identifies the level of pain that we're reducing. And it also gives us the report that we can then give back to a medical professional on how the actual treatment was performed and is effective. The original music, I think I should let Stéphane jump in on the original music component because I believe this should interest you quite a bit. The meat of music care, I should say, is the music. The application is just a vehicle that delivers the music. Yes, there are some key features in the application, like I mentioned, about reporting data. There is one that affects music pretty intensely, is the ability to take music and extend it from, say, 20 minutes to 60 minutes or beyond. So essentially, we have a technological way of taking a song that make it last for hours if we wanted to. The reason why we do that is mostly for doctors that, for example, have operations, or a patient that needs, 20 minutes isn't enough to put them to sleep, and they need a 40-minute or 60-minute session. So this scientific research is really the synchronization of musical parameters with patients' vital signs. And we have worked with some major artists such as Vin Gordon, Tony Allen, David Bismuth, and much more. Stéphane leads the composition team. Stéphane, do you want to make any mentions about the music composition process itself?
Yes, quickly, it's very important because music here, yes, it's a alchemy, a meeting between a music therapist, artist, and scientific. And it's very important for us to bring the art and the emotion in the treatment. That's why we traveling around the world to produce quality music. So that's why I've been, for example, in last February in Africa to record with Toumani Diabaté, Salif Keita, who is the most great composer in West Africa. And we want to be adapt to all the culture of the world. And that's why one of the most important things in music care is to produce the music and to respect exactly all the recommendation of the scientific literature, and to produce music to specific BPM with specific harmony, and to adapt all those music to the taste and the culture of the patient. And that's why we want also to work with very famous musicians, because they have the power to stimulate the emotion and then to make the patient feel less pain and have a better effect on pain, anxiety, and on emotion.
The method itself that Stéphane was alluding to is actually based on something called the U sequence. This is something that you may have heard or not. It is a principle in creating music where there is an induction phase, there is a relaxation phase, and then there's an awakening phase. The relaxation phase is really, as you can see in the U. So essentially the music goes, and as it goes down, there is the parameters of the actual composition change. It can even change, by the way, based on the pain level. That's important to realize, is that if you have a higher pain level, the tempo, for example, will be modulated based on that. And once obviously we get to the relaxation phase, this is when we're essentially sedating the user or patient, and that part of the sedation could be extended for a long period of time. And at the awakening is when we awake the patient. Now we have three different models: the L, the U, and the J. They're basically the same thing, just cut out in multiple pieces. The L is used to put someone to sleep, as you could imagine, that kind of waterfall. The relaxation, which is the whole process, which is the pain and anxiety, and the awakening, which is the second leg the third leg, I should mention, of the U, which awakes a patient. There is a protocol that is established that we have used in over 500 hospitals nowadays. And it is basically an induction protocol of talking to the patient, communication, asking what kind of music they like, letting the app also figure that out. But the communication between the medical professional and the patient does help quite a bit. You can kind of get a visual here on how it actually processes from step 1 to step 5. Here is a clinical study that shows you the effects of sedation and relaxation with music care with the different groups. We do have plenty of clinical studies, I should mention. We have different presentations. This presentation doesn't mention it, but we have over 150 studies. We have 30 clinical trials of our own. It's the music care essentially is science at its foremost, core, and then the music production is based on the science. The application is the delivery method. So another very important study shows that music care has reduced the sedative dose by 62% during coronary angioplasty. This is actually a video that you might see on our website that we've mentioned a few times. And you can see on the right-hand side, the control group and the music care group. Here are a couple of more shows the significant drops in heartbeats and blood pressure, where again you can see a difference between music care and non-music care groups. So this is, we have used music care in different environments. One environment where we've seen one of the highest success rates is in oncology. We have seen that we can reduce pain and anxiety in cancer patients by up to 74%. And this is really meant on, this was a clinical trial, so that you can really see the effect of music care when it's applied properly and in the right setting. There is a financial component as well, is we have shown through, well, this is with a colleague of ours. This study wasn't a music care particular study, but it showed that music intervention can reduce the cost of hospitalization. And that's pretty, I mean, if you think about it, there's a logic to it, right? So the patient is doing better, less anxiety, less pain. He is in the hospital less, therefore he requires less care, therefore it costs less. So there is a connection there, but the actual figure based on this study is a $2,000 cost saving per patient versus a patient that's not using music intervention. So we have been validated by many groups, mostly in Europe, some in the US. I should mention that this is one of our longer presentation documents. It doesn't have some of the newer partnerships. The one partnership, which is very recent, is we have partnered with Sanofi. And this for us is a very, very important step because it is global validation from a pharmacological the industry, I would say, to show the power of music now in the pharma world that is now presenting that to 60,000 doctors in France, and that's the beginning. France is where we have our pilot. The goal here is to go global, but we want doctors to be prescribing music with painkillers. And with this milestone with Sanofi was a very, very big milestone for us because it's the first major step of a full national, large-scale rollout where a doctor will have the painkiller that Sanofi makes, but will be offered to offer it with music care. So we have worked with American hospitals such as Baylor Scott Group. There's the Providence Group. We have partnerships with La Croix-Rouge and many, many more. We've also received a couple of awards, some of the key, going back 10, 12 years, as you can see. That's just kind of recap on, what's the key elements here that we're pushing and when we're trying to get the world to see is when music is built a certain way, it is a treatment that is effective and it is an alternative to opioids and painkillers that create addiction and all kinds of other issues. And this is that we've proven that we can reduce pain by 52%. We can drop medical consumption by 53%. We can reduce anxiety by 72%. So thank you very much for your time. That is the presentation. We look forward to your questions and comments. And
was there some situations when patients wanted to go out of their usual music experience and to try something new, like some genre they didn't used to listen to?
The app, the patient can select the kind of music he loves. So today on Music Care, there is kind of jazz, classical music, world music.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand. Imagine the situation when the patient, for example, is a high jazz lover, and he or she maybe says that it's interesting, I have never listened to metal music, for example. Was there something in your practice, and did the specialist maybe offer something, or they just told that you should keep the genre you like?
Yes, we have a recent study we make with McGill in Canada. We test the music care when the patient really love the music and adapt to the culture, and we also in the same patient we also make them heard a U sequence not adapt to their test, and the results are the same at the end of the 20-minute session. The impact of the tempo and of the parameters of the music will have an effect on pain, but when you use the music you really love and have a very affective component, it will be more quick to treat the pain. So the efficacy will be arrived in less than 2 minutes. And if you don't really like the music, all the modulation will bring you also to a state of relaxation, but it will be more long to have the effect on pain. So I think it's very important, and all the scientific literature on music and pain recommend to use music that the patient really loves. So today, and the best test when we're in the hospital, very concretely, we make here abstract, a very short part of the music, and he will say, "Oh yes, I love," or "No, I don't like it." It's very important to choose the music according to the taste of the patient.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for the answer.
No problem.
We have a few questions in the chat here. So, what sort of music is used mainly? Is it modern composition, classic, folk? Any preference in instruments? You know, do people like more vocal music or string instruments, maybe?
So yes, today we work with only instrumental music, so there is no lyrics, because one time more in the studies of the music and pain, the recommendation of the literature, scientific studies tell us to use only instrumental music to have a better effect of the modification of the state and the sedation. So mostly this is that we use instrumental music. Can you repeat your question? Maybe I missed something.
Sure. Yeah. The other part of the question was: is it any particular genre? So modern composition, classic, folk, maybe.
No, this is very interesting because we have patients who will not be receptive to a kind of music, and the same music will be the best and will be very effective for another patient. So that's why we have all the data today, and it's very important for us. But it can be classical music, and there is no one music who will help to treat pain for everybody. So some patients take electronic music, and after the session said, "Wow, it's very amazing. It make me forget my pain. I was nearly falling asleep." And the same music to another patient will be the inverse. Well, oh, no, I cannot hear to this music. It stress me and don't have any effect. So one thing, maybe world music is the most chosen today. Choose on the app, because the patient can choose African music, Indian music, but this is not. Yes.
Sure. I would imagine there's probably a lot of music which has which is slower, or maybe has specific elements to it, which are kind of people might describe as flowing, just long and kind of relaxing. So you can already grab on to that sound and kind of relax yourself. I can imagine, like for example, Indian music, they've got the sitar with a kind of just very elongated sound. Maybe it's just I'm just imagining right now. Maybe that's what they think. One other question, which I think you kind of already answered in your previous answer, but maybe you can elaborate a bit more in this question, is: can music be harmful to a patient?
Yes, it's very important. And I think, yes, that's why it's very important. And the main objective of our app is to give the patient the opportunity to choose his music. This is very most important, and all the studies are going in this way. So that's why if you don't ask the patient and you just put him headphones and you, the caregiver, choose the music for the patient, like I told you, for example, classical music with violin. If you give that to maybe teenager who hate classical music, that will be an inverse effect. Maybe people don't really like jazz. If you make him a session with jazz music, that will make stress level go higher. So yes, it's better to do nothing than to put music no adapted. But I think it's very easy to understand, and
Sure.
the good way with music, if the patient don't like the music, you just have to take off the headphones and to stop. It's not like you take a medication and when you took it, it's you have to wait the effect. And
of course,
so sometimes on all the research we have more than 90% of patients with a session are going to be effective, but we still have 10% of the patient who doesn't see the efficacy, who doesn't work. So few patients, it's happened 1 on 10, maybe less, according to the department in the hospital. But we take off the headphones and say, "No, I'm not in a state to listen to music. It's not good for me, not now."
And
sometimes the ICU, it's a kind of a complicated context, because they are already plugged with a lot of machine, and when you put also headphones, it can be anxiogen. So that's why we work with a little speaker, for example. For Alzheimer's disease also, we work with little speaker, and we're really careful of the kind of music we're going to make them listen. and to adapt in all those situations.
My other question was going to be, have you had a chance to sometimes have live music? And if yes, did that make any difference at all as well?
Yes, no, I love to work with live music because I'm a music therapist. So I used to work in jail with young people or with brain injury people where I use active music therapy, where I was playing live music with them to work on the memory, on the behavior, and a way to express the emotion. But with the music care project, it's only pre-record music and different algorithm to adapt the music listening to different type of care. But I'm very interested by all those studies who work with live music for pain treatment. It's very interesting, but in different situations it's not possible. You know, when it's midnight and the patient cannot sleep and need a medication for sleep, we don't have live musician. So our solution is sometimes it's better adapt so a nurse can easier make him listen to the music instead of give him the medication.
Of course, no, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I would not want
that's
to be
very
playing flute
interesting.
at midnight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But maybe you have a nurse who can play flute, and that will be the dream of the evolution of the care. So all the nurses can be musicians. We are not here today, but
One day,
or can
maybe,
sing.
maybe.
Yes, I think there's a lot of nice possibility. But I'm sure, yes, the nurse and all the personal staff have to introduce music, live music, pre-record music in the care. And this is a recommendation of the World Organization of Health since 2019, who recommends the use of music in the care. So this is a very important report, has been published. You can find on internet if you have World Organization of Health, Art and Health. They make a review literature, a meta-analysis on more than 3,000 studies who show that it's very important for the staff, medical staff, to introduce music every day in the care.
And specifically live music.
Yes,
Yes.
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 But
Nice.
all kind of music in this report. They're talking about. We're very proud because our studies are also in this report. But it's they show that music listening in ICU is very important for the respiratory rate and the pain. For Alzheimer's disease and cognitive stimulation, live music is very recommended. And they're talking about the art globally. So it's not only music, but it's also painting, theaters, and it's very, very interesting.
Very interesting indeed. Yes. I'm wondering if anyone else in the audience has any more questions.
I have a question as well.
Yes, please.
Yes, thanks for the presentation. It was very interesting. I was wondering if you took into consideration whether the participants were musicians or not musicians, because I know that there's a different brain activation with musicians when they hear music, especially if they hear, for example, music that they play. If that is taken into consideration with the therapy, or if it's not important.
Yes, it's very good question, and we make studies on this. We make meta analysis on all the patients we have, and we observe that musicians are less receptive to music care than non-musicians, because a professional musician will kind of interpret and to try to analyze the modulation of the music. So it won't be easy for him to let the music bring him to this state of relaxation. So it's not on all the musicians, but for very professional musician, music teacher, the effect will be less important than a non-musician. So we try of taking this consideration when we use this care.
Okay, yeah, so this is very interesting because I have
Yes.
seen some studies on the brain activation, which is stronger even within musicians, according to their instrument specialization, rather than others. So,
Yes,
thank you.
yes. The professional musician are more try to analyze
Yeah.
all the components of music, the tempo, the accords, the tonality, and yes.
Thanks.